The Indonesian island of Sumatra was the day's first victim as a massive earthquake struck deep under the waters off Sumatra's west coast. The earthquake was the most powerful to shake the earth in 40 years. Measuring 9.0 on the Richter scale, it had so much force it triggered a series of another of nature's most fearful creations, huge, deadly waves known as tsunami. And this tsunami was the deadliest on record. From the quake's epicenter, the tsunami raced outward at more than 500 miles an hour to slam into unprepared coastal towns and villages. Within a day, its impact was felt all around the world. In some cases, entire villages were destroyed. Even the conservative estimates of at least 200,000 dead, most in Indonesia, are staggering. And those figures don't count the tens of thousands of people still listed as missing 3 months after the disaster. It's possible we may never know the true number of lives lost. Help in the form of international aid organizations arrived quickly. But with more than 1 million homeless, it was determined a much larger relief effort was needed. And right away, the U.S. military was among the first to answer the call.
It's hard for us to comprehend the devastation suffered by so many. And over the next days and weeks and months, we'll push forward to provide aid and comfort, responding with a team of dedicated countries and organizations. And we'll continuously improve our efforts as we go. And we're going to stay in close coordination with the relief professionals to make sure that we're providing both them and the host nations what the host nations ask for.
In the early stages of Operation Unified Assistance, as the mission was named, the U.S. military focused a lot of time and energy on search and rescue efforts in the devastated region. Many flights were dedicated to searching for those who, against the odds, may have survived being washed to sea.
Yeah, I see it, 5 o'clock. Yeah, there's the underwater object.
Sadly, none were found. On land, search and rescue efforts focused on finding survivors cut off by destroyed bridges and roads. This was particularly important in Indonesia, which had suffered the force of both earthquake and tsunami.
I think our primary effort has been lifting supplies using our helicopters down the west coast of Sumatra. The whole region south of Banda Aceh, down that west coast, all the way down to Malabo, about 70, 80 miles down, is completely isolated. The whole coastal highway road system and bridges are all out. I think we've counted about 56 bridges along that route that are destroyed right now.
The first days of the massive relief efforts brought U.S. military men and women face to face with some of the countless tragic scenes the tsunami left behind. Marine Lieutenant General Robert Blackman, who was charged with directing the combined support forces in the relief effort, says the horrors only increased his people's desire to help.
I think the extent of the devastation and what some of our service members saw, especially in the first few weeks, really spurred them to really give 110% every day. I mean, they were working hard, but I think those that saw the actual devastation were just inspired to put in extra time, extra effort, extra motivation to accomplish the mission.
Summing up that desire after finishing one of the first helicopter missions into Indonesia, Navy Senior Chief Jesse Cash.
It's just frustrating that we didn't get to do more today. I wish we could have made 5 more runs. I wish that as soon as the sun goes up, we're working it until the sun goes down. And I think we'll get to that point. Nothing compares to what we saw today. Nothing.
Similar words of compassion were echoed by the nearly 10,000 U.S. military men and women supporting the tsunami recovery efforts. When Recon continues, we'll hear more about their roles in this life-saving operation. The U.S. military men and women involved in the tsunami relief efforts came from all branches of the military to include the Coast Guard. Each began providing assistance immediately upon arrival in the area, but there were some challenges. The tsunami had ripped up coastlines, in some instances changed them forever.
So we have a difference in one case of several hundred yards in where the shoreline was post-tsunami to where it was prior to the tsunami.
Before the ships from the Navy's 7th Fleet could carry supplies ashore in Indonesia, a survey for underwater obstacles and changes in terrain had to happen first. The task was given to a team of naval oceanographics experts deployed from Mississippi. Using ships and boats like these, they surveyed ports and potential beach landing areas.
Field charts are navigation quality charts that Fleet Survey team produced. They showed where new obstructions to navigation existed, where the hazards are currently. It also showed areas that had changed from as a result of the tsunami.
How can we do more to help was a question asked often by the U.S. military men and women who saw the devastation firsthand. And their desire to do more only grew as the death toll rose.
The numbers started piling up. 200, 300, 500, 1,000, 10,000. Then you sort of just become numb to the number of people. And you think, okay, that's the dead people. Now I'm worried about the people that are alive.
Medical care, food, and drinking water are what the survivors needed most in the first days after the disaster. In some locations, they were desperate for all they could get. U.S. military aircraft, ships, and their crews proved invaluable at moving supplies to central locations near the tsunami-affected areas. Aid agencies loaded their trucks with supplies for victims they could reach by vehicle, while military people filled their helicopters with all the water and food they could fit for those in remote areas. Although language differences and the constant roar of helicopter engines made communication difficult, the most important messages were still exchanged.
I can remember an instance where, as I'm unloading the supplies off the helicopter and literally handing it to the villagers who desperately needed them. You could see by the look on their faces the gratitude that they were feeling, that we were there to help them in their time of crisis. At the time that you're doing things like this, I think words aren't really needed.
Military members described their days as long, challenging, and rewarding.
It's hard conditions to work in. It's very hot and humid here. It rains a lot, very muddy at some points, but nobody skipped a beat due to it, and I think everybody is thankful that we're able to come over here and help these people out.
Even as many of these I've done in the past, this was probably the most rewarding mission I've ever had. Just knowing that you're making that impact, because that C-130 lands on a ramp where people that are destitute and out of, down on their luck are all around the ramp there, and you know that they're looking at what's coming off the back of that aircraft knowing that they're getting help.
The tsunami survivors' most critical needs were taken care of by the second week of operations. At this point, the focus of the military forces shifted to helping clear rubble, tearing down damaged buildings, and salvaging materials that could be used to begin rebuilding their lives and futures.
Mission here is to demolition the school here, try to salvage everything that we can. Everything that is salvageable that the Sri Lankans can use when they go to build again is what we're trying to keep.
And they can help. Very good.
1, 2, 3.
Many servicemen and women involved in the relief effort weren't on the front lines delivering supplies or cleaning up villages, but the jobs they did, like making drinkable water, fixing planes and helicopters, handling cargo, and so many other support roles, were just as important in providing hope for South Asia.
We know why we're here, and it's for a good cause, so we have to do our job and get done right, fast.
Okay, stop.
This is absolutely one of our best missions. When you get to go out and see a different land, help a different people, someone that actually needs help, this is pretty much where the money is.
I think it made a tremendous difference on really two levels. In literally a matter of days, we were bringing food, water, and medical supplies to the affected people. We were medevacing people to medical facilities, providing medical care on the ground. And I am absolutely confident that we saved many, many lives. And through our ability to bring fresh water into the region, I think we had a great impact on preventing widespread disease and epidemics. On another level, and perhaps in the long run more importantly, I think we brought hope to those people.
Among the hundreds of thousands of tsunami victims were many visitors, vacationers from around the world who were also caught up in the tragedy, and some are still counted among the missing. Those who escaped the tsunami's fury, including some members of our DoD family, have amazing stories of survival. Meet Sherry and Kirk Meyer. She's a librarian at Osan Air Base, Korea. He's a retired teacher. They were vacationing in Thailand when the tsunami hit December 26th.
Christmas Day, we just decided to, go out and do a live aboard so we could do our scuba diving.
It's just gorgeous. The water was 79 degrees, and we jumped off into the water and went down. It came around this big, huge, what did they call it?
A bommy.
A bommy.
Just a big pillar of coral.
Of coral, and the current kind of just took me.
And we latched onto each other, just grabbed each other tight, and it wasn't 2 seconds later, all of a sudden,
it was,
boom, the big
amazing.
Current hit us.
Yeah.
The sand, it became a whiteout, and we were tumbling.
We grab a hold of each other, and that's when all hell breaks loose. It was like a tornado underneath. We were being tossed and spun. There was sand everywhere. You couldn't see. The visibility was zero.
There's nothing you could do.
No.
Just stared at the depth gauge, because I thought the only way we can really get hurt is if it's pulling us real deep, too fast, or shooting us up too fast. So we just stared at the gauge. You had to have it about this close so you could see it, and just went for the ride.
After 3 minutes of our safety stop, we pop up out of the water, and the water is just really it's boiling all around us. And we kick away from the island, and we just kind of hang out and wait. About 10 minutes, they come and get us, and they had been looking for everyone. We're still an hour from the mainland, and then we saw our first body. And as we start heading in further, we see many, many more just floating. And the Thai Navy is marking them with bamboo sticks. We get to our resort, we pull up, and the only thing left standing is an open-air lobby. And that's when they said that not everybody had made it, and that the survivors had been taken to a warehouse.
I think when you go through something like that, you can't help but to be changed.
I had asked Kirk, this has been quite the experience. What do you take from this? And we both decided that you take the kindness from the people, because that was so evident. The people who took care of us had lost their family, and they were obviously grieving. And they had brought food and water, and what little they had, they gave to the tourists to make us comfortable. I think that's really how I want to live my life now, is to give what you have.
Examples of people helping people were everywhere in the days following the tsunami. It's an aspect of human nature that isn't always on display in everyday circumstances. But when tragedy strikes, that caring and desire to help seems to come to the forefront. Among those on the forefront for the tsunami disaster relief effort were men and women of the U.S. military.
Absolutely incredible. I could not be prouder of every single soldier, sailor, airman, and Marine who participated in this. Their heart was in it. They gave 110%, 24 hours a day to this relief effort. I think that they truly saw through the extent of the disaster a need for them as individuals, as units, and as this whole combined support force. And they stepped up and were just absolutely magnificent.
Proud of what I was able to bring to the mission. I mean, not overly, you know, like it's just me. I know it takes all of us to do it, but just knowing that they got the relief and they're being taken, you know, and their spirits are being uplifted because everybody just added so much to it. And it's unbelievable how we pull together. Even though we have the terrorism thing going on, we still put resources to the tsunami relief, and it's just amazing. I'm proud of that.
As just a person, not just a soldier, it really warmed my heart to go down and do as much as I possibly could to aid in the relief of the suffering for the individuals in those areas.
Along with the pride this effort generated, there was also the realization that so much more help is still needed.
At first, it made you feel good that your little part helped, but then you knew that there were still people that needed more help. They needed more money, they needed more water, they needed more rice. We successfully sent down about 1 million pounds of rice, water, clothes, dried noodles, but still, you just wonder, if there was more people involved, could we have done more to help more people?
Spouses missing, loved ones lost.
1 month after the disaster, a memorial service was held. It was a chance to remember tsunami victims and to reflect on how suddenly everyday life can turn to tragedy.
I think it's important today, a month after this extraordinary tragedy, that we take a moment to reflect on exactly who we are and what it is that we are doing here. That we pause from our largely military and practical duties in the application of relief across the region. They are duties in support of humanity, of people, and we demonstrate to them that we are here for people in need. I think beyond providing for basic human needs, the water, food, medical care, I personally think that beyond that, the difference that we're making is providing hope.
Most immediate needs were taken care of by mid-February, and international aid agencies were in a position to take over all relief operations. So, after weeks of emotionally and physically demanding work, on February 14th, the men and women of Combined Task Force 536 packed up and headed home.